ルフィ、私はあなたの決定に従うけど、海賊の同盟には裏切りがつきものよ。人を信じすぎるあなたには不向きかもしれない。
え、お前裏切んのか？
いや。やろな！ちった疑え！
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Since OP13 is coming out pretty soon, I figured I would start getting into my OP13 content. So just like we do kind of every set, I wanted to do a set review, and let's just kind of hop into it. We'll do the first three colors, that's red, green, and blue in this video, and then we'll do the next three in the following video. And I have not looked at these cards too much, so some of this will be fresh reactions, some of it will just be what I know from the Japanese meta, but I hope you guys can enjoy it anyways. I am using the Asian English site, so hopefully these should be pretty well translated since the official English site, and then we'll just have the Japanese images just so I can get all of them with their alt arts. A lot of the deck building sites have the cards, but switching between alt arts and everything, I figured it was just easiest to just go through it here. But let's go ahead and just jump into it. So first color we have is red, and we've got at least three new leaders this set in red. And the first of them is Monkey D. Luffy. He's always going to show up. We see him all the time. This time he is in red-green, which is just like what he was in OP01. But let's see what the effect is. He's a 5,000 leader with 4 life, pretty standard. Then Dawn times 1 on your opponent's attack. If you have 5 or less active Dawn, you may rest any number of Dawn cards. For every Dawn card rested this way, this leader or up to one of your Straw Hat crew type characters gains 2,000 power during this battle. So it effectively means that you have counter events, the base 1 cost 2k counter events for any amount of Dawn less than 5, which makes this leader really potent at defending. Because this doesn't require cards out of your hand, it is hand efficient, and I think this is just going to be a pretty great leader. I don't know if it'll match the kind of known start top leaders, but I think this will be a viable kind of second line deck that you'll see pop up and will probably show up in top 8s, but not necessarily make it all the way. But yeah, great card. And then going back to the manga faces, this really is my favorite style for the alt arts. I do a lot of times try to get the Kaizoku cards. They do a series for the alt arts that don't come from the manga. They'll do a series that is something that they pick a manga panel for it, and I always like to pick those up. But this is great. It fits Luffy really well, and great to see it. Next up we have Ace. This is going to be one of the top decks in the format in OP13 for sure, at least based on what Japan has done. It is a 6,000 power leader with 3 life, with 2 colors, red and blue. And it has, on your opponent's attack once per turn, you may trash 1 card from your hand, give up to one of your opponent's leader or characters minus 2,000 power during this battle. So similar to a reverse of the blue-yellow Nami ability. You trash a card, you give a single target minus 2,000 for the battle. It's not for the turn, so it's not super great against maybe like a Zoro. But strong nonetheless, because you just get to throw away cards with no counter, which can be real big. And that's how it feels in Nami, and that's I'm sure how it'll feel here. And then he has Dawn times 1 once per turn. When you take damage, or a character with 6,000 base power or more is KO'd, draw 1 card. So real strong draw power from the PRB Marco, who has the on KO draw 2. When he dies in this deck, you draw 3, which is an immense amount of card draw, which is going to make this deck really hard to kill. And it will definitely be a very strong deck in the meta. Here is the alt art for it. Again, I love these manga panels. This, I believe, is when he turns around to tell Sakazuki to take it back after the insult towards Whitebeard. So a pretty iconic moment for Ace. Moving on to the next leader, though, we have Roger. He's finally here in the game, and he is demonstrating his King of the Pirate-ness. He has 7,000 power and 5 life. And he's red-purple, so he kind of breaks all of the rules of regular leaders here. And then his effect is, if you have any Dawn cards on your field, one Dawn card placed during your Dawn phase is given to your leader. So it's a really weird wording, but what it does is, outside of the first turn, going first or second, this won't go into effect on the first turn. You have to put one of the Dawn, if you're not already at 10. If you go to add Dawn from your Dawn deck for the basic rules, you have to put one of them on your leader. So that means that he has to play off curve most of the time, except for on that first turn, and at the end of the game he doesn't have to play off curve. But at that point, curve is kind of subjective. And then if you have 9 or less Dawn cards on your field, give this leader minus 2,000 power. So he isn't full power. That 7,000 power doesn't apply until the end of the game. So you are definitely incentivized to heavily ramp to get up to the 10 Dawn. Just similar to how blue-purple Luffy works, except you are a 5-life leader. And your reward for getting there is not drawing 2 cards, but getting an extra 2,000 power, or 1,000 more than what Luffy has. So very strong ability, and with the right support is a very strong leader. Perfect pick for him for Roger. I think the only other panel that you could consider picking for Roger would be the very beginning where he says, I left it, go out and find it, the One Piece. That would be the only other panel I think that would even be remotely acceptable for this leader, but they picked this one, which is it's a great panel. Moving on to our third and final red leader for the set, we have Sabo. He is a 5,000 life, 5 life leader, so he's breaking one of the rules. He's not a 4 life like normal, and his effects are, if you have 4 or more life cards, give this leader minus 1,000 power. So this is similar to how one of the other dual type dual color 5 life leaders in ST10 Kid works, where there is some sort of debuff early in the game when you have full life. So one of the things that you're going to need to lean into in this deck is allowing those first 2 life to go. So if your opponent wants to freeze you up, they can kind of stifle a little bit of your offense by not giving you those life. But I imagine that's probably not going to be too big of an issue because it means you have extra life going into the end game. And then he has Dawn times 1. If you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, your leader and all of your characters gains plus 1,000 power. So this goes along with the stuff that we got last set for Koala, where you get an artificially cheap 8 cost, and then them all getting plus 1,000, not just the leader. Leader gets to go up to the base 5,000. Everybody else gets to go up an additional one. So this ends up being a very strong ability. And then your characters having higher cost also makes them pretty resilient to removal. So they're pretty hard to get off the board both in combat and with effects. So this is another leader. I think based on what I've seen from the Japanese meta, this is another tier 2 leader. Pretty strong into certain matchups, but not as great into others. So it makes a neat kind of deck. And then we have another good manga panel here. The one thing that I dislike is how similar this is to the other red-black leader for Sabo. So we'll have to see how long it takes people to get confused between the two Sabos in real life. This one will be the stronger one, I think, in general. But the fact that they have similar-ish art and are the same colors and everything like that will make it kind of difficult to tell at a glance which one's which. Moving into our first card here, we have Inazuma, who's a 4-cost 5,000 power 2K counter with on play give a rested Don to your leader, which is a great ability for the Sabo, especially if you are playing this off of a dragon. This is pretty easy to get in the trash because you're using it as a 2K, and then you can play it. You will have the 8K or 8 cost in the dragon, and then you have this one who will put the Dawn on leader, which makes the dragon a pretty effective 8 Dawn play to get all of the effects off of the leader. So a great one to pay attention to. Next up, we have the 1 cost 0 power 1K counter Whoop Slap. His on play is give 2 rested Dawn cards to one of your Monkey D. Luffy cards. So this one is probably one that is aimed at like the Rayleigh and the 4-drop Luffy and those sorts of cards. I don't know if this one will see too much play, but it does synergize with some pretty powerful cards. So I wouldn't count it out categorically, but not one that I would expect necessarily. This also could work with leaders, so keep that in mind for Monkey D. Luffy leaders to pay attention there. It is a 2 rested Dawn for 1 cost, which is not unreasonable. Moving on to the next one, we have the Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. This is their kid form. It is a 1 cost 1000 power 2K counter with activate main. Give 1 of your active Dawn cards to one of your leaders or character cards and trash this character, and then give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 3000 power during this turn. So the way this one ends up playing out is kind of like a 2 cost Raise Max or a 2 cost Gordon. Is it Gordon? I don't think it's Gordon. I don't remember the original one, but Raise Max is the most recent version, and I think probably the one that people are most familiar with at the moment. Or Building Snake, it would be another one that people would be familiar with. So less effective as an attacker than those two, but the intention of this one is to just reduce something low enough for you to use some KO from another source in red, because red usually KOs off of power, and then being a 2K is just a great place to be. This one also would work really well with Marco. Because you were going to put that Dawn on your leader anyways for using leader ability, this one is quite strong in getting that on there. I could also see this played in a couple copies, maybe an Ace who needs the thing, or Sabo. They all kind of are looking for that 1 Dawn attached, so this is just a nice utility card that can kind of fill a bunch of roles. And then we got the nice alt art here, and the crews all together here. Moving on to the next card, we have Emporio Ivankov. He's a 2 cost 3000 power 1K counter with, if your revolutionary army type character would be KO'd by an opponent's effect, you may trash this character instead. So it's a good protection ability. I think that it's similar to how the Sabo works from the Dressrosa archetype. And I really want to see them print some cards that allow you to play out these kinds of cards from your hand as an addition to another thing. So it's like play out the one guy, like in the way that Jinbei worked, where play out a Jinbei who plays out something else. If these are the things you're playing out with that Sabo or this, then you get to inherently protect the card that's bringing it along. This does work pretty well in the Sabo deck with Dragon from OP13, just as a way to protect the Dragon. It's unlikely that your opponent usually can't KO 8 costs, but if they are finding ways to get there, this is a pretty reasonable way to protect him. Moving on to the next one, we have Curly Dedange, who's a 1 cost 2000 power 1K counter with, if you have a Mountain Bandits type character other than this card, this character gains double attack. So notably, I think this is the second card that gives double attack to, well, it itself gains double attack. There's other Mountain Bandit cards that grant other low cost characters double attack. So this is the kind of card that I could see working really well with Magda and the other Curly Dedan, because this would be searchable off of the OP02 Curly Dedan, which I don't know how long they'll stay in the meta together, but they are powering up some of those that one drop angle of Zoro, and it would be interesting to maybe revisit that with a card like this, which does represent a whole lot of pressure early and really incentivize your opponent to counter out early. Also would work with Makino as a way of kind of surprising an opponent with a body that doesn't look necessarily very threatening, but can rapidly increase in size to get some pretty dramatic power boosts. Moving on to the next one, we have our first vanilla for the set. We have the Lord of the Coast, who is from just outside of Goa Kingdom, from the first episode or so of the anime. Neptunian, East Blue. Red Neptunian is probably not going to make any difference right now, but it's always important to watch these things for the future in case we get more archetypes that fit it. Moving on to the next one, we have Cobra, who's a vanilla 2K. So the 5 cost 6,000 power 2K. On to the next one, we have Vivi, who is a 1 cost 2,000 power 1K counter. On play, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Alabasta or Straw Hat Crew type cards with a cost of 2 or more and add it to your hand. Then place the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is just like we've had Law in the past, we've had Veggie in the past in different colors, and so this is just continuing on that archetype or that cycle with Alabasta this time, Alabasta and Straw Hat Crew. So definitely going to be one to keep your eyes on. Straw Hat Crew will always be a good thing, and having searchers for it's going to be great. The Nami will compete with this, so you hope to have something Alabasta type to also search off of this to make it worthwhile compared to Nami. On to the next one, we have the 1 cost 3,000 power Higuma, who's a mountain bandit, and he has on play KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 0 power or less. So playing this with the Luffy, I could definitely see a situation where you can get something low enough and then KO it with this guy. He would also turn on Curly Dedan to give double attack. And then I wonder if this would fit in ST, I think it's 21 Luffy, which is the Gear 5 Luffy in red. I wonder if this would be something that you could play in that deck. But moving on to the next one, we have the 1 cost 0 power 2K counter, Portcast de Rouge. So this is Ace's mom, and she has a trigger. With trigger up to one of your Portcast de Ace cards gains 3,000 power during this turn, which is great defensive power. This is the kind of trigger, it's not quite veggie levels of trigger, but it is, especially on the new Ace, puts you to a 9K leader, which is super hard for people to get through. So definitely a card I would just expect to see maybe in sealed, but not too much else. But if you want to spice it up and have some triggers for your Ace deck, this could be an interesting one, giving you that 2K with just a really spicy trigger. Moving on to the next one, we have another Makino. She is a 1 cost 0 power 2K counter with activate main. You may rest this character. Up to one of your Monkey D. Luffy cards gains 2,000 power during this turn. So the way I see this one is similar to the original Makino. Things that it can do that the original Makino can't do. You can buff a leader if your leader is Luffy. And it doesn't, it's not limited to 1 costs. So if you wanted to buff, for example, the 4-drop Luffy from OP12, from the Rayleigh support, this would be a way you could do that. So 2K counter, always going to be great. It's not searchable by very much, but worth keeping in mind. Next up we have Garp, and it doesn't look like his image is loading very well, but here he is. He is a 1 cost 2,000 power 1K counter with on play, if your leader is Sabo, Ace, or Luffy, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal one with a cost of 3 or more, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So this notably dodges the kid versions of Sabo, Ace, and Luffy, which I think is probably a big hit against it, but it does get to search for anything else. Which can be relevant. In this one would be limited specifically to the what's it called? The newer leaders more so than the older Three Brothers decks, because this would only technically work in Sabo from the old ST13 days. And missing the little kid, I think, is kind of what they were going for. Is you can search for a lot of things, but you can't search for the little kids. So it's designed to not 100% synergize with those decks. Moving on to the next one, we have the alt art for the Garp. All right, so now we have the alt art for it. Great looking alt art for this one. And yeah. All right, next up we have Monkey D. Dragon. He's a 6-cost, 7,000 power, 1k counter, Revolutionary Army with once per turn. If your Revolutionary Army type character would be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you may give this character minus 2,000 power during this turn instead. So this is another interesting one where it can sit on the board and be kind of a pain by just protecting all of your Revolutionary Army type characters. And so the original red-black Sabo protected the characters through his leader ability. The second Sabo doesn't do it so much through his leader ability, but his characters seem to protect each other all pretty well. And so just something to keep in mind when you have need of protecting your board and kind of keeping your board alive. You have a lot of different options in this deck in red-black. Moving on to the next one, we have Wapol, and he is a 2k counter vanilla at 6 costs. So 6, 7, 2k. And here is him escaping from Revelry with VVE in his mouth. Crazy, crazy scene. Moving on to the events for red, we have the 1-cost event, but Ace here said you deserved it. And this one has main. You may rest 4 of your Dawn cards, so that makes 5 total. Give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 during this turn, then give up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3,000 or less. So it's effectively a 5-cost KO with 6,000 power, which is not great. It is worse than in cards even going back to OP01 with the Jet Pistol. But it does have the upside of having the counter ability where you can counter and give your leader specifically 3,000 power during the battle. So definitely a tech one. If you have a deck that can search for either of these types, or in particular you want to hold up events, this might be worth holding on to, but I would probably not think that this will make the cut in a lot of decks. Moving on to the next one, we have Meteor Fist, which is a 3-cost event with main. Give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 5,000 power during this turn. And then trigger, activate this card's main effect. So this trigger can be really important because it can be a very strong like veggie style effect. And if you do need something as big as a minus 5k, this could be a card that could be worthwhile. It is definitely kind of bricky because you can't use it as counter, and costing 3 does limit what you can play along with it, but this is a very strong trigger to go along with it. So moving on to the next one, we have Gum Gum Gatling Gun. So this is an early Gatling Gun, so this is before some of his other variations on it. And this one is a 1-cost event with main. Give up to one Restodon card to one of your Monkey D. Luffy cards. Then give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. And then it has a trigger of give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. So a minor, relatively minor trigger. Can be impactful, especially if your opponent's trying to math out lethal. This is essentially a free 2k counter in those situations. And this could be pretty reasonable because it's effectively a free minus 2,000 power during the turn. The tricky part is getting one of your Luffys to do that, which means either having your leader Luffy or having some of those characters. So something to watch out, because that's not necessarily free. Finally, we have this event, which is the Windmill Village. It's a 1-cost event with Activate Main. You may rest this stage. Up to one of your characters with 2,000 base power or less gains 1,000 power during this turn. So this is quite a bit similar to the original stage. It is cheaper than that original stage, and it has a different requirement. But I would definitely not expect very much out of this deck, or out of this. It can, if you play it out on turn 1, it can represent quite a bit of value, but it is pretty restrictive, so it's something to kind of use with care. I wonder if they're setting up in some sense for events to be more usable as a resource, having cards that interact with trash an event or trash a stage, but we'll see. Moving on to the next color, we're starting into green. There are no green leaders, or no green leaders that also aren't red. So first one we have up here is the 4-cost 5,000 power 1k counter Uta. On play, set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active, so it effectively is 2 costs. That just has to wait till turn 4. Then you cannot play character cards with a base cost of 5 or more during this turn. So if you're playing out just a bunch of cheap guys, no downside. And it's just a 2-cost 5k. And then it also has, on KO, play up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less from your hand, rested. So there's a lot to this card here. Your board becomes pretty sticky this way. Especially because if you are playing out a Straw Hat and you're playing the red-green Luffy, you'll be able to use the Dawn to protect that Straw Hat coming out, which means you may essentially get a 2-cost 5. For 2 costs, you might get a 5-cost character with a block, because your opponents will have KO'd or done something to this card. So there's definitely a lot here. I think it's just a matter of finding the world where all of those things come together for you. The alt art here, another cute Uta art. Japan loves this character quite a bit, so she'll always get some good support. Next one we have is a 1-cost 0 power 2k counter Gordon. He is on play. You may reveal 1 music or film type card from your hand. Set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active at the end of this turn. So this one is interesting. I wonder how they intend for this one to work, because you need to be running music or film, which fits with Uta, but Uta doesn't usually care about having active Dawn at the end of turn. This might also work with the red-green Luffy, because I think that it is relatively film heavy. But again, that you are giving up a 2k to get effectively 1 extra 2k, because the 1 you would normally already be able to use with leader ability, and then you would get a second one, which is potentially relevant, but definitely something that you have to be careful with, because if your opponent plays around it, then all you've done is given up a card in hand that you could have used for some other resource. But definitely one to keep in mind when you're looking at the deck. Next up, we have the 5-cost 6,000 power 1k counter Kobe, who is a blocker. And then on play, if your leader has the film type or the strike attribute, set up to 1 of your Dawn cards as active. So we know Luffy has the strike attribute, and actually let me go check. The Luffy, does he have the film? He does not have film. He has supernovas and Straw Hat Crew. So this works with Luffy off of the strike half. Also would work with Uta, or it could work with, I think there's a number of different strike attribute ones that you could do. And then you would allow you to set one as active, which effectively makes him a vanilla. Got the 4 cost 6, but a blocker, which is pretty good. So definitely a card I will be paying attention to, just because the strike attribute I think is something that people will overlook. So being able to have kind of a list of things that you need to pay attention to, this is the kind of card that could be useful at a time in the future that people aren't expecting. Moving on to the next one, we have the 1 cost 2000 power 1k counter Sunny. And it has activate main once per turn. You may rest one of your Dawn cards. This character gains 2000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this one does not rest him. So he is effectively a 1 cost 4k at the cost of resting a Dawn every turn that you want him to be a 4k. He also does get it until the end of your opponent's next turn. So he can represent some pretty aggressive things that is kind of, it's not trivial, or well, I mean, it is pretty easy, but considering your leader has so much built-in 2Ks, you might be able to get away with a pretty aggressive angle on this, using some of the original OP02 film stuff and playing out these 1-drops from your hand. Next up, we have the 5 cost 7000 power 0 counter Sanji. He has on play set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active, making him effectively a 3 cost 7k. And then at the end of your turn, if your leader has the film or Straw Hat crew type set up to 1 of your Dawn as active. So effectively, if you are able to make use of an active Dawn during your opponent's turn, this is a 2 cost 7k, which is a lot of value. You do have to wait until you have 5 Dawn, so it's not trivial, but that is a lot of potential value you can get out of this card. Notably, the 5 cost does interfere with your ability to play him out off of other film cards, which I think is probably their rationale with doing some of these higher cost ones, even though they're effectively pretty cheap. So we'll see how these end up playing out in the game. I would see this one as pretty comparable to the Frankie from OP02, who hasn't seen too much play because that 5 cost was awkward. But this one does have a lot of extra text on it that could be useful for you. Moving on to the next one, we have the alt art of Sanji. This is pretty good alt art. Sanji usually has good alt arts. Next up, we have the 10-drop Shanks. He is a 12k power, no counter, film 4 Emperors, Red Hair Pirates. On play, set all of your Dawn as active. Then you cannot play cards from your hand during this turn. So notably, this means that you can't play cards by paying their cost. You can play out those cards from other effects, as I understand it. I'll double check the Q&A when the set does come out fully in English. But I do believe that you can use other abilities to set them to get cards out, just not paying their cost to play them out. So I've seen this one as a pretty effective finisher for the red-green deck, because you just slap 5 Dawn on something and then you have 10 more 10k worth of counter just in your Dawn, and you have a 12k. So you get to do a whole lot on the turn that you play this guy, even though you're not playing out characters. Next we have his alt art. Interesting here in the shine of the sword, we do see it looks like Gear 5 Luffy, which is a pretty neat little thing. Moving on, we have the 6 cost 7000 power 2k counter Jinbei. He's just a vanilla 2k. Being the film Straw Hat Crew types is pretty important for searchability, so just wanted to pay attention to. Next up, we have the 5 cost 6000 power 1k counter Chopper with on play set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active. So 3 cost 6k, effectively. Pretty good. After that, we have the 6 cost 6k Trafalgar Law. If you have 1 or less life cards, this character gains blocker. Pretty reasonable. On play, you may return 1 of your characters to your owner's hand. Play up to 1 character card with a cost of 5 or less from your hand rested. So this one allows you to generate a whole lot of value here, especially because even if this one comes out rested, if you're playing the red-green Luffy deck, you are able to defend it with, if it's a Straw Hat crew, you are able to defend it, is what I'm trying to get at. So the tricky bit there is having 1 life or less. Well, no, this always is active. This is if it also has blocker. So you can definitely play out a 5 cost or less with a lot of effectiveness there. One card that I would definitely recommend looking at. Let's find it. This is the one. This character, one of the most difficult parts for this kid is getting him out and getting him rested, because he doesn't have the abilities that the other 8-drop kid does. So being able to play out a 5 cost rested and having a blocker and having potentially a good defensive build could be pretty relevant in this deck, because forcing your opponent to swing into a card that you have a lot of prep to defend can be pretty relevant, especially if you're up against maybe an aggro deck, just allowing you to be really defensive there. So just something to pay attention to. Moving on to the next one, we have... All right, moving on to the next one, we have our girl, Nico Robin. She is a 7 cost, 7,000 power, 1k counter with on play up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 8 or less cannot be rested until the end of your opponent's next end phase. So this cannot be rested is a really interesting style ability. It means that they can't attack, they can't block, which, unlike just can't attack, obviously they could block, but this prevents both attacking, blocking, using abilities that require resting. This is a pretty reasonable ability. Being a 7 cost means that this is kind of hard to get out on any reasonable schedule. And it does have the limitation of 8 costs or less. So it doesn't hit some great targets. Like if you could use this to turn off a Blackbeard, if they neglect to use leader ability, feeling confident, that would be pretty awesome. But yeah, I think that this card is one that if you can find a place where it's good, it will be very good. And then a lot of times you just won't be able to find a place where it's good. Just in general, that's the vibe I get from this card. On to the next one, we have the Frankie, who's a 3 cost 5,000. No counter, but on KO, rest up to 2 of your opponent's cards. This could be Dawn. This could be their characters. This could really shut down an offense when it comes to defending your board. Maybe your opponents kind of have to swing into it last. Yeah, there's some text to this one. I don't know that this one will see a lot of play, but there is definitely some text to pay attention to on this one. Moving on to the next one, we have Brook. He's a 3 cost 4,000 power 1k counter with Film and Straw Hat crews, and on play, if your leader has the Film or Straw Hat crew type set up to one of your Donk cards is active. So effectively a 2 cost 4k, so vanilla. Yeah, he's a vanilla. I don't see the upside necessarily. The 2 cost 4k, I think in Film is the what's it called? The Jimbei from OP13. So probably if you were considering this guy, I would also consider the Jimbei, who probably just works out better. If you play him off of another guy, then getting that Dawn active can be relevant. So if you were playing maybe Brook to play out Brook to play out, you play out the OP02 Brook to play out this Brook, then you do get one active, which can be used for leader ability for defense, which isn't the worst situation to find yourself in. But I do think this is probably on the weaker end of the cards that we've looked at so far. Next up, we have the 5 cost 7,000 power no counter Beppo, and then at the end of the turn, set this character or up to one of your Dawn cards as active. Helps it's nice that he can defend himself by restanding himself or just setting up a Dawn for the future. But again, this is probably one of the weaker ones that we've seen. Having no counter means that if you don't have a good opportunity to play him out maybe on 5, it can be kind of awkward to make that work. Vanilla stat line is pretty good, but I do think that this one is probably going to get passed by. Next up, we have 2K counter, 5 cost vanilla, the Helmetful. And then we have, I think I've seen this one as one of the cards to watch. It is a 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1K counter with on play if your leader has the film or Straw Hat Crew type. Set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active, so a 2 cost, 5K. And then at the end of the turn, set this character as active. So he's really kind of sticky and hard for your opponents to deal with. Always getting that swing in, which can be really effective against decks that really want to use their board to try to clear yours, forcing you maybe to swing into life in an inopportune time. Moving on to the next card, we have first of our events. We have the Gum Gum Elephant Gun, which is a 2-cost event with main rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. Then set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active at the end of this turn. So it's effectively free for that rest. It's just you have to have a way to use the Dawn on your opponent's turn. And then it also has a trigger of rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So this is pretty strong. 5 is a pretty relevant number right now. So there will be times where this bails you out by just taking away one of their attackers they were relying on. And for an ability that's effectively free, you do have to play it in the deck. So when you draw it, it means you're not drawing something else. But as far as the cost to you in Dawn, it is effectively free. Next up, we have Gum Gum Sneak Shot, which is a 2-cost counter event with KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. This is pretty efficient as far as removal goes. You do need to engineer a spot where they have a rested 4-cost, which isn't a given, especially as a counter event. Your opponent gets to untap all of their guys, and that can be kind of hard to make work. And then it has a trigger of activate this card's counter effect. Effectively means this can kind of gotcha something that's already attacked that's a 4-cost. I think this is probably one that will stay at home most of the time, but there's definitely a world. This is a strong effect if you find it occurring in your games. Next up, we have the 1-cost event. This looks like our modal event where you have the counter. Leader gains 3,000 during the battle, and then main, you may rest 2 of your Dawn cards, so that's 3 total. Up to 2 of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 7 or less will not become active your opponent's next refresh phase. This can be pretty big at really kind of stifling your opponent's aggression. They go in and then they don't get to attack for multiple turns. The fact that the characters have to already be rested is a little bit of a pain. It's difficult to set up in a lot of ways. But I wonder if there isn't a way to maybe use this with Gravity Blade, because it's relatively effective at kind of freezing out something for a couple turns, and then you just Gravity Blade it away at the end of it. And then it always has the backup of this counter event style, which can be pretty reasonable. So not one I have my hopes on too high, but one I will pay attention to, because this is a pretty reasonably powerful effect if you can engineer the spot where they have the 2 rested 7 costs. So let's move on to the next one. Now we're on to blue, which will be our last color for this video. First up, we have this 6-cost, 6,000 power, 1K counter Ezo with on play draw 2 cards. Very simple. The kind of card that this is definitely a card that just will be a very stock value piece. It effectively is a vanilla 4/6 with pay 2, draw 2, which is pretty reasonable. I don't know how many decks I would see it played in. because it doesn't. 6 makes it a little hard to use with some of the other synergies. But one I would definitely pay attention to if you find a spot where you can play out a 6-cost Wano or Whitebeards. This is going to be a great card to play out off of those abilities. Next up, we have the 10-drop 12k Newgate, who has blocker. And then on play, draw 2 cards and trash 1 from your hand. Then give your leader or characters up to 2 Rested Dawn cards each. So that's a lot of value. That's 4 Dawn worth of Rested Dawn. Draw 2, trash 1 is at least, that's a +1 at least. And then a big 12k blocker. I think this is one of the cards that makes Ace very strong, especially alongside the other 10-drop one, which lets you tax your opponent's abilities. If you have them taxed and then you have a 12k blocker, there's not any reasonable way they're going to get through those 2 swings. Moving on, we have his alt art. It's great alt art. Looks like he is about to wreck somebody with his Devil Fruit there. Wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that one. Next up, we have Otama. This is one of the cards that probably got the Nami leader banned. The blue Nami was probably bound to get banned eventually, but this is definitely the kind of card that would break it. We already had on the ban list the Kabaji card, who was banned specifically for the Nami, and this was just an always a stronger card. It was a 2k counter. It was only 1 cost, and it didn't require anything else from your deck, any other bad cards for your deck. Having 3 or less life cards would be super easy to engineer in Nami, so this was just a 1 step too far for the Nami deck. Great card, though. Definitely one to pay attention to. This is a super strong ability. Comparable to Kaya, probably stronger than Kaya in a lot of ways. So just one that'll be a stock 2k counter in almost all blue decks who don't have better options. Moving on to the next one, though, we have Curiel. He is a 3-cost, 4,000 power, no counter. When attacking, give up to 1 Rested Dawn to your leader with a type including Whitebeards, or a character with a type including Whitebeards. And then on KO, draw 1 card. This is a great way of just enabling leader abilities or Dawn times 1 abilities. And being a 4K means you do have to invest a little bit into him, which is a pretty big downside. And it being a when attacking means he can get cleared before he makes an effect. But at least then, if he gets KO'd, you do get to draw a card and kind of replace him. So pretty low risk on this one, especially if you have something that needs a lot of targets to play out, like the 5-drop Ace from OP13. This would be the kind of card that you could have in your deck without too much risk, because you'd probably try to set up to play it off of the Ace. Next up, we have the 1-cost 2,000 power 1k counter Haruta. With when attacking, if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, draw 1 card. 4 or less is pretty low, so this is probably only going to get you a single card and only probably getting you that. If I had a 2k counter, I could see this being a much stronger card. It's just something to just run out early and then buff up and go. Unfortunately, cards like Makino only do red 1 costs. Otherwise, I could see it being played with that as just a way of push out your hand and then get your card draw back with some aggression. But I think this one I'm pretty suspect on. Next up, we have the 6-cost 8,000 power, so that vanilla stat line Vista. He has no counter, and he has double attack, which is a great ability to have. Then once per turn, if this character would be KO'd or would be removed from the field by your opponent's effects, you may trash 1 card, including Whitebeard Pirates, from your hand instead. So this is very similar to how the Odin looks, being a double damage threat with a once per turn kind of trash thing. It's a little more restricted here because it has to have a Whitebeard Pirates type. And it doesn't synergize necessarily as strongly with the kind of play out a card in Nami, pick it back up, play it back down, pick it back up, play it back down kind of angle. But I would definitely see this one as a possibility for Nami. The Whitebeard's Nami could definitely be interested in a card like this because it comes out a little bit earlier than Odin as well. Next up, we have the 2-cost 3,000 power 1k counter Fossa. If your character with the type of Whitebeard Pirates would be KO'd by your opponent's effects, you may trash this character instead. So another protection ability. I do like these protection abilities. Then being on 1k counters makes it really harder to justify. I guess you play them out in the early turns to try to stifle black decks, maybe. And then you get a swing in and then just use it for... what's it called? Use it for its effect or something like that. Or set up for a turn where you swing with a couple different bodies, using this as just your protection for a couple turns. So I could see that for sure. Because the 2-cost turn is sometimes hard to capitalize on. So I could definitely see a world where that works. If this had a 2k counter, I think this would be pretty easy to include. But just as a 1k counter, it does want to justify itself a little bit better. Moving on to the next one, we have Vanilla 2k of Flamenco. Not too much else to say. Whitebeard Pirates, so searchable in the ace deck. Next up, we have another 2k Vanilla. This time it's Blenheim, who's at 6-cost. After that, we have Boa Sandersonia, who's a 2-cost 3,000 power 1k counter with on play if your leader is Boa Hancock. Play up to 1 Boa Hancock with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. So I don't know how many Boas we have with cost 3 or less. I don't think it's a ton. So I'm curious what the angle they're going for with this one. Probably leaning into the Kuja Pirates angle where you are bouncing your own things to trigger Boa's ability. And so I could see there being maybe a cheap Boa card that maybe is a searcher or something like that you get to tap, bounce to hand with this as a kind of way to get value, set up a couple bodies for leader ability. Moving on to the next one, we have the Boa Hancock. Here's our 3-cost 5,000. So this is the kind of card you would want to play off of it. This one is 3-cost 5,000 power, no counter, with on KO if your leader is Boa Hancock or multicolored, draw 2 cards. So yeah, this seems like a pretty solid card to play. The on KO means your opponents have to either deal with it in a non-KO manner, or they just have to deal with it plinking at them for 5k the whole game, which is pretty reasonable. Draw 2 cards is a pretty strong on KO effect. Obviously, the Marco is a much better version of the same effect, being on a blocker and everything. But as a card that can come off of the previous card here on 2, that's actually some pretty reasonable value to kind of set up in the early game. Moving on to the next one, we have the alt art for it. Great alt art. Luffy, or Boa, Myron after Luffy. So a fun one there. Moving on to the next one, we have Boa Marigold. She is a 5-cost 4,000 power 1k counter with blocker. And on play, if your leader is Boa, play up to 1 Boa with a cost of 6 or less from your hand. So this one would play out the stun Boa, which is a pretty strong card in its own right. I could also see there being a world, actually we've seen the preview that there is a blue-yellow Boa coming in OP13. So this is the kind of card that may fit well into that deck in the future. Being a blocker, even though it's a 5-cost and it's a lower power, being a blocker means it's still got good value. And the value you're getting is playing out this extra body early. Moving on to the next one, we have the 4-drop 5,000 power 1k counter Whitebeard, or Teach Blackbeard, I should say. He is Whitebeard Pirates type, and when attacking, you may trash one of your characters with a type, including Whitebeard Pirates. Draw 1 card, and this character gains Banish during this turn. So he gains the the darkness fruit ability, banish and negates triggers at the expense of trashing one of your Whitebeard Pirates. So if he kills Thatch, he gains banish and draws a card. So pretty good theming on this one. I don't know if this one's necessarily super strong. I could see this one does come out off of the 5-cost OP08 Ace. So something to notice with that, because it could be pretty reasonable play there, especially because you can do like your EZO, use your EZO searcher as the when you're trashing, getting a card off of it and banish. That's a good amount of value off of kind of a card that you just kind of set up with the other ace. Next up, we have the Yamato, who's at 5-cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter with on play. If you have 3 or less life cards, draw 2 cards. Then give a Rested Dawn to your leader. This one is so perfect for the blue-yellow Nami. Very, very strong ability. You are frequently having 3 or less cards. Drawing 2, then giving the Rested Dawn to your leader is great. So you're set up for leader ability. You have a pretty reasonable attacker on board, and draw 2 cards. Pretty much everything this that Nami wants out of the deck. And then we should have the Altart for it. Oh, this is a really great Altart. I do like this a lot. I'm going to have to pick these up for the Nami deck. Yep. This is also another one that was a reason why blue Nami had to be banned. This would have been just too strong in blue Nami. Setting this up and setting up the leader ability to get even an extra mill potentially, it would have been a little too much. Moving on, we have the 3-cost, 4,000 power, 1k counter Rakuyo, who has when attacking, if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, all of your characters with a type, including Whitebeard Pirates, gain 1,000 power during this turn. So definitely one that reminiscent of the previous Rakuyo, being a kind of anthem effect, giving all of your guys plus 1,000 power. The 4 or less cards is kind of difficult to get, but like I said, there's definitely a world where you play it out early as something that you don't really have other things. This also does attack as a 5k, so it is a vanilla stat line that just has the advantage of also buffing the rest of your board, which is pretty reasonable. Next up, we have 7-cost, 7,000 power, 1k counter Little Oars Jr., who has when attacking, if your leader's type includes Whitebeard Pirates, draw a card. Just a simple draw card ability. A little expensive for his power, but this is a pretty effective ability. Moving on to the next one, we have our first event. If I bow down to power, what's the point of living? We have Ace saying he is this 1-cost event with the counter, and its ability is main. You may rest 1 of your Dawn cards. That means 2 net on this main effect. If you have 1 or less life cards, your opponent cannot activate blocker whenever your leader attacks this turn. So it is effectively like a Double Jambe or a what's the other card? Perfumer for Ace specifically. And it works specifically on your leader. So it's quite a bit more limited than you would see with some of those other cards, but being on a base 6k leader is pretty reasonable, and it having the counter as a backup is a lot of things to like about a card that is otherwise just still a good card. Definitely one I would expect to see 1 or 2 of in the Ace deck, no matter what. Moving on, we have the Phoenix Pyrapple, which is another modal event. We have the same, your leader gains 3,000 power during this turn for 1. And then main, you may rest 1 of your Dawn cards. So again, that's 2 net. Place 1 of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. This one definitely feels more appropriate for a Marco deck with leader ability and 2 Dawn. So on 3, you get to bottom deck a 5k, and then it gets even better than that if you have some other cards to combo with it. It also depicts Marco, so makes a lot of sense for this to be a good Marco card. Moving on, we have our final event in blue, and so the final event of this video, we have the 4-cost event, which is Brilliant Punk. And it is a main event. You may return one of your characters to the owner's hand and then return up to one character of the cost of 6 or less to the owner's hand. So this is Josu's ability, just as an event instead of a character. Not coming with a 7k body is pretty big. Having a trigger is a reasonable trade-off there. But this is definitely one that you want to be playing in a deck that cares about events. I'd be curious actually to see if this one is any good in a blue-purple crocodile deck. That could be one where I could see it being relevant. You play out maybe a searcher to look for something early game, and then you get to return cards to the opponent's hand and draw cards. Yeah, there's quite a bit to like. I'll have to investigate this one for Crocodile. And actually, in the context of Crocodile, I was considering a Whitebeard Pirates-ish version that would be running the Odin because of its synergy with the Mr. 1 from OP13 that lets you get back a 1-cost event. And this would also fit in that mold with Josu as well, where you essentially are playing out your counter event, drawing a card off of it, playing out Mr. 1 to get it back, and then playing out either this event or Josu, or using Odin's restand ability to continually get back that same event, continually drawing cards on it off of it. So something I'll definitely be investigating then is that kind of combo. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to look into that. So great place for this video to stop then. We have a really interesting card for one of my pet decks that I will have to investigate further. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you again next week for the next 3 colors. That'll be purple, black, and yellow. And we'll see where we end up. And hope you guys are looking forward to it. I will see you then. Bye.